You have tuned in to Be the Voice podcast, where we are using our voices to shatter the silence by promoting healing from past trauma, aiming for victorious living, and uplifting the work to improve our communities. It's time to be informed, encouraged, and empowered with your favorite host, Dee Marie. Well, good evening and welcome to Be the Voice podcast. This is your host, Dee Marie. I'm so excited today, like I am all the time. We have a great episode. And you know, February is Love Month, as we all know, Valentine's Day. And this month we're doing a series called Relationship Status. So last week we had a relationship status, which was single. You know, I'm single. We had a great conversation with two men of God who are single. And we just talked about, you know, can you be single and happy? Well, today we're going to talk about being newlyweds. So we have two great guests here in the studio. And so, but before we get started, I want to let you know that Be the Voice podcast is actually brought to you by Voices Magazine. And Voices Magazine is an online magazine that is tailored to bring the voices of sexual abuse survivors. And included in the magazine is Counselor's Corner, Healthy Living, Fashion and Beauty. We spotlight organizations that are in the community actually doing the work to improve our families. So if you want to get a copy, please go to vocesmagazine.com, and that's VOSAS magazine.com, and you can get your copy there. And just let you know that even though you're not a survivor of sexual abuse, the magazine is still for you. You will find so many great nuggets. You will be informed, encouraged, and empowered. These stories are just phenomenal, and just people that are overcoming and actually living their lives victoriously after going through past trauma. So, all right, so let's get started today. I want to welcome my guests in the studio. We're in their office today. Sometimes I like to travel around St. Louis just to get a vibe of different places to be. But so we have in the studio Cedric Cobb and Cheree Cobb. Welcome.
Yes, we are very happy to be here.
Absolutely.
I am just so grateful that you guys said yes and that you're here. Well, I'm grateful you guys said yes. Period.
Yes.
So I have known Cheree for over 30 years.
Yeah,
we went to college together, and just to even know your journey from then until now is just absolutely amazing.
Yes.
And just as your friend, I'm so proud of you, and just really, I just admire what you do, and just inspired by, she has a broadcast on Facebook as well that Cheree. Is it Cheree Cobb?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Cheree Cobb. But just inspired by all that you're doing. And just appreciate that you guys are here. And Cedric, if you all don't know, so we have a celebrity. This is my first celebrity. On Be the Voice. My first celebrity here. And Cedric Cobb is definitely a celebrity. He was featured on Shark Tank, if you all didn't know, which you probably do know. But
Season 10, episode 21.
That's my wife.
But just really honored to have you guys here on the podcast. So just first, let's start off and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Wow, I'll let you go first, sweetheart.
Okay, wonderful. So ourselves, meaning us together, or me individually?
You can do individual and then
individually
together.
and then together. Okay, so my name is Cheree Cobb. Cheree means shining light, and Cheree means beloved, and Cobb means that I'm covered.
Yes.
Cobb means that I'm covered.
Yes.
And you know, prior to being married, I was single for 5 years after coming out of a very traumatic divorce. So I've had the fortunate and unfortunate privilege to live in a marriage that was not ordained by God, and now to be in covenant that God designed for me.
Yes.
And in between that period of being single, God really helped me to understand who I was as a woman, and to really kind of get me back in a position of wholeness so that I could be prepared to be presented to Cedric. So there were so many things that I went through, but most of it, I would say, if I had to sum it up in one word, it was consecration. I had to really get in a position with God where nothing really mattered but him. And there were a lot of lonely days. There were a lot of nights that I cried. There were a lot of moments that I rejoiced because I knew that God had made a promise to me.
Yes.
And so preparing that part of my life, I felt like there was a season where God was just cleansing me and purifying me in my singlehood. And then there was a season where he was preparing me. And I think as singles, because I know we're talking about from singlehood to
Yes,
newlyweds.
yes.
I think as singles, when you know that God has you in that preparation period, that's the biggest time that the enemy can come in, because we begin to get anxious.
Yes. Yes.
Because I know I'm ready. God's told me that I'm ready, but it's like, okay, ready, now wait.
And like, God, where is he, God?
Right. Where is he? Where is he? And then, we have those opportunities where we can get around God and get in front of him. We have opportunities where we can be stalling and God be like, come on, now it's your time. Here's your window. I'm ready for you.
Right.
So that's always a critical period in the life of a Christian single, is when after you've been purified and now God's ready to present you, because you can get tricked into moving too fast. Right. And you can get tricked into not moving at all.
At all. Yeah. I think that's where I've been tricked at.
Not moving at all.
Right.
Yeah. And so moving from not my will, God, but your will really be done in my life. I said it this way: God, I want what you want for my life.
That's good.
And once I settled into that, God presented me to Cedric, and he gave us so many different types of confirmation. Yeah. I mean, it was just bananas, the way he confirmed to each of us separately and together that we were the covenant that he always had in mind for us. And so that's a little bit about me.
Okay.
And how I got to Cedric.
Outstanding. Thank you for that, sweetheart. I would like to add to that for me personally is in going through a divorce for the second time and realizing that, you really need to let God put that thing together. Yeah. You really do. You talked about getting ahead of God in the times when he's like, ready, get set, now wait. Yeah. And you're like, no, let me help you, God. Let me help you. Let me just put this here, put that there. He's like, all right, go right on ahead. And you'll put the wrong thing together, right? But then when you say, no, let me go ahead and do it your way as best I possibly can. And I'm really fortunate to have a very strong network of positive, progressive, African-American Christian men who we're all very much so marriage minded. And we know that ultimately we're going to be the best versions of ourselves in covenant. We really are. So the Bible doesn't say this for no reason. When a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing and he obtained the favor of the Lord. Mm-hmm. He didn't say that for nothing. Okay. But he has to find his wife, not a wife. Right. Yeah. And then she needs to be a wife, not just someone who wants to get married. Ooh. Right. So there's some real true differences in there. And I'll say this, and I know you probably want to move on a little bit, but fine. She said to me when we first started having conversation, she said, dating's really difficult for me. And I said, well, why is that? She says, it's difficult for me because I'm a wife. And so I kind of get confused on what to do and where I'm going. I said, wait a minute, hold on. Go back to the wife part. She says, I'm a wife. And here's all the reasons why I know that I am. This. And I'm looking at the phone like, what? Now, where do they say that at? Because, and I helped her understand that I'm a husband and dating is difficult for me too. I don't want to have a roster of women. Right. Even though I know I could. Mm-hmm. I'm really not interested in that. You realize how distracting that is when you're really trying to accomplish something. You're really trying to build something. Mm-hmm. But better yet, you're trying to be an example to your children. Okay. I have 3 girls and a boy. Okay. And what are they going to think? Dad's got all these chicks out here, right. Who the flavor of the week this week, right. What kind of message does that say to them? Exactly. Right. Yeah. So for me, it is, man, just that one. I just want the one. That's really it. And I want her to already be a wife before I meet her, not a woman I have to build into one. Okay. Miles Monroe says that too. He says you're either gonna find a wife or you're gonna have to build one. And it's you may try to build something and run out of materials. Oh, no. and you may not ever achieve it. It's like we ain't got no more roof and shingles. It's raining in the house. No. But that's what you built, bruh. Yeah. Right? Now it's better to find one because that's what's in line with the actual favor of God. A man who finds a wife, like a Ruth. Yes. And she was already a wife when he found her, like, wait a minute. I even know men to this day that say, And when I saw her, I knew she was my wife. Well, why? And when you start talking about the attributes of all the different things, it's like, wait a minute, she was a wife when I recognized her. And now I get why I knew that was my wife, because I already saw her as a wife before I ever even really had a conversation with her, before I really had an opportunity to get to know her heart. So I will tell you this last piece is that when someone tells you that they are a wife and not, I just want to get married, right? I'm a wife. What it does for us as men, we make lifelong decisions based off as much information as we can aggregate about that person to say, this is who I would like to do. I would like to do life with. And so when you have someone that says I'm a wife, now I get to watch her movements. I get to see how she acts and how she behaves. Is she a nurturer? Does she fly off the handle every time she doesn't get her way? Is she, all these different traits that you may say, wait a minute, that's not very wife-like, right? It's like, It sounded good that you said you were a wife, but you really do not portray those attributes. It was quite the contrary with her. It was more like, yep, that looks about wife-like to me. Yeah, that's what I want my wife to do. Yeah, well, hey, okay, right? And then you start getting other outside confirmations from pastors and friends and other prophets and your children and different folks like that really line up. So that's what I'd have to say.
Okay, I have so many questions.
Well, you know what? I do want to say this too for those who are watching. We've been married for 45 days.
45 days.
45 days.
For about 45 days.
Wow.
That's it.
We were in courtship
for
a tremendous amount of time. Yeah, several months, almost a year.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that courtship piece as we go.
Yes, because we definitely have to get into courtship. Okay, so where to even start? I have so many questions. One question, because we did just have the conversation about being single. And with being single as a woman, there aren't many men that are marriage-minded, such as you said. But you obviously have a great support system of men that are marriage-minded.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we find it difficult to, I think it's because we have, and I'm just going to speak for myself.
Sure.
Yes, I love God. I've been saved for a long time. But it's like the men that we're meeting are not really in the same spiritual place. But as far as me, though, I think sometimes I'm almost too picky, where if they do anything,
good Lord, you cutting them off at the knee? Jesus,
not anything,
but yeah. I think sometimes it can be a little too picky. But as a single woman, where are these men? Where are these marriage-minded men? I know last week, one of the pastors said that they're in their hobbies. They're in their atmosphere, in their careers.
Yeah.
And he used an example that he ride bikes, but he said, how many women do I see riding a bike? He said none.
Wow.
Right.
So, where are they?
Yeah. So think about this. So let me take it to the Bible real quick. Okay. So I want you to think about Ruth. We're going to focus on her for a second. Okay. She was gleaning in Boaz's field.
She was.
Right? She was gleaning in his field. So that's another thing that shows a man this level of cooperation, because that's really what submission is. It just means cooperation.
Oh, we're going to talk about submission.
That's really it, right?
Because people think that's a bad word.
And so before she even knew that he was really looking at her, she was already operating in her purpose. She's out there gleaning in his field. All of that is us guys who are marriage-minded or can recognize a quality woman. When we may not be marriage-minded at the moment, but when we recognize a woman that's different, that's like, man, there's something really special about her. Men can really get it together pretty quick. We really can. And I have many friends who have, like, man, as soon as I met her, I knew it. I threw the black book away, man. I shut everything down. I was like, I'm good. I ain't calling. I'm not texting nobody.
So he may not have been marriage-minded in that moment.
But
it was something about her that made him tap into that part of himself.
Yes. I want you to think about men are hunters, right? So many times men can make major adjustments in order to get what we want, right? And so if we want to hunt duck, geese, right? We want to hunt geese. It's a special way you got to hunt. You can't shoot them while they're on the water. You're gonna need a dog to retrieve them when they fall in the water. You can't use an AR-15 to shoot them. You got to use a shotgun. There's a certain method that you have to use to get that if you want to eat duck. Different when you want to hunt elephants. All those types of things. So men will typically adjust to, and I hate to use this phrase, but we'll adjust to the prey that we desire. So we desire that woman who portrays the attributes of a wife. We're going to go, I need to be more of a husband. What do I need to do? What does that look like? You know, what kind of things what things are going to keep her interest if she is a wife-like woman, right? So many times when you talk about going after the man or where are these men, a lot of times it's about who do you be as a woman though, right? Good, yes. Because so check this out. This is funny. Cheree and I talk about this all the time. So when I hear women like, where are these men at? I don't even know where they at. You know, I'll be like, okay, cool. Listen, I got a friend of mine. His name is Charles. His name is Charles. Yes. And Charles is a good brother, hardworking guy, got good credit, looking for his wife, ready to go. I'm going to have him over your house tomorrow at 7 p.m. to pick you up for your first date. Now, what happens between now and 7 o'clock tomorrow? Right. Are you at home doing crunches, trying to lose a COVID-20 in one night? Are you now like, girl, you know what? I need to get my credit together. Yeah. Girl, I need to, you know what? He coming over and you running around. You ain't got nothing to wear. You don't know what the conversation's going to be like. You ran yourself so ragged. You falling asleep on the date because you talk about where is he at? But then I say, well, here he is. But then you're not even prepared to entertain a marriage-minded man. Wow. So it's about also being a wife-worthy woman too.
Okay. And one thing that you said to me, I guess this was a few months ago, because I was talking about the visions. I don't know if you remember this, but I was talking about visions. I think I had written in my kitchen on my board, and we started talking about relationships. And you said, well, I challenge you. I want you to think about not what you want in a man, but who you are as a wife.
Yes.
And I was like, wow. And I did. I wrote some things down. I probably have to tweak it, go back and look at it. But and to the women who, and I'm sure they're listening like, well, what is a wife? I'm a wife. I'm a wife. Right, you know, what is a wife?
I think that the baseline of it, let me say this, and Cheree, she laughs at me all the time. When people say things like, well, I'm ready to get married. I'm tired of being by myself. I say, okay, cool. Well, let's start with this. How do you feel about people? And then I watch their face and like, I said, see, if you don't have a strong reverence for people, being in relationship is going to be next to impossible. You got to be able to have this reverence for people, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because guess what? I didn't just marry her. I married her and her 4 kids and her granddaughter and her dad and her sisters and her brother and her nieces and her nephews. I married all of them. And I got to be very, very dynamic to manage all of those relationships. And it behooves of me to have a good working relationship with all of them. Our relationship could be great, and then other relationships are not good, then eventually our relationship's probably not going to be great. Yeah, so if you don't really have a true reverence for people, it starts with that. The second one is, biblically, do you have the fruit of the Spirit? Are you kind? Are you generous? Do you have self-control? Are you those type of attributes are critically important because they're great elements that go along with being able to coexist with the opposite sex. And then if you really want to get to the pinnacle of a wife, then Proverbs 31 is really like, and I mean, she was a beast. She was a beast. She was a beast. Yeah. And I think that may be something that many women may not ever get to, but we need to aspire to. Yeah.
Because I think sometimes women, and I know this because I have conversations all the time, but I think when they think of being a wife, well, I'm not his slave. He's not going to tell me I got to cook. He can cook too, Yeah. And what is that neck thing? Because that neck be going. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm going to tell you something, and Cheree hates it when I say this. When, Jesus, I'm sorry, baby. Okay. When we encounter, especially men who are in a position to because remember, we're the ones that control access to marriage, right? And women control access to sex. Right. And so there is no relationship if us guys don't press the issue ultimately. But when all this extra neck action and I ain't this and I ain't that and all this I ain't, we'd be like, okay, cool. We just pick somebody else. And that's a fact. We're not going to sit and negotiate with you. We're not going to argue with you. We have patience up, but yet to a certain point. And the higher quality of the man, the more aware he is of his options.
You are absolutely right.
And so, because if you take a good guy, which I have a couple friends, if I line up 10 women, I don't care who they are, but 10 women that desire a relationship and run down his attributes of who he is to them, 9 out of every 10 will be like, I'll take him. But it goes back to what you want. Does what you want you?
Yeah.
Now that's good.
Yeah.
Say it again.
What you want you?
Yeah. Does what you want you? Yeah. Many. So you can make all the lists in the world, and he need to be this, and he need to be that, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what? Want what you want, but you need to buy what you can afford, because what's in you may not be able to buy them. Yeah. It may not be able to own that relationship because you got too much trauma. You don't have a real true reverence for men. You're very argumentative. Everything is a debate and an argument. It's like one of my good friends says, you want to look for women who are more like jazz music to your ears, not like rock and roll.
Ooh.
Yeah. And some women are just like, like, oh my God, and it's like, and let me say this, those women, and I really hate that because, again, all in, I have 4 daughters, right? Yes. 4 daughters and 4 granddaughters. Mm-hmm. And so this is not an indictment on women as a whole. Right. We're talking about a subset, a certain archetype of woman that maybe has been shaped that way because of her past or her experience. And she's just had to survive, and I know women are very, very adaptable, especially Black women. Yes. And so since Black women are so adaptable, many times for them to survive, they've had to take on more masculine traits and be more aggressive and be, you better not try it with me because I'll do this to you and I'll do that to you. And it's really just survival for the most part. But ultimately, many things that have to do with who you are, it may not be your fault. But it's your responsibility to fix it.
Oh, now that's good.
Yeah.
Because I think too, as single going into, and I'm sure you guys can attest, I think therapy is good.
Therapy is non-negotiable.
Non-negotiable. Okay, so let's talk about that. So if you meet someone, and I know every guy is different, and she's like if Kira, I don't do therapy, would that have been a deal breaker for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely would have been a deal breaker for me. Now I wouldn't necessarily say therapy in itself,
right?
But healing.
Yes.
Yeah, healing.
Yes.
Because she didn't heal by just going to a therapist.
Right.
She was laying on God's couch.
Yes.
She was laying on God's couch like, Lord, what do I need? Fix me, change me, all that. She was so healed to the point where she wrote a book about it.
Yes,
right.
Sure did.
Yeah, and the book is called Fix and Broken, and it's not just help heal her, but even her father.
Yep.
Her father has read her book a couple times. Her friends, she's at conferences about it. And really, when you look at her life, you're like, wow, this woman really did her work with God. Yes. Now, what she's done is a rarity. Because many folks need to know, I need some real application to figure out how do I understand me so I can now understand me. So then I have the opportunity to understand others. But ultimately, we have to be committed to this lifelong learning process of how do we become, right? So then we can have. So who do you be so you can have?
Yes.
I know that if my mindset is not that of a multimillionaire, I'm not going to have. You get what I mean? I'm not going to have. Yeah. Then I would end up being no different than most lottery winners. You want all this money, but you never had the mindset to handle it.
Oh,
and within
good.
5 years, you're broke, i.e. divorced.
Yes, yeah. And I think too, with people in general, sometimes it's hard to look in the mirror, but you truly have to heal and do the work in any relationship because you're going to destroy it before you even get started.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's so important.
I think if we say to ourselves, what's going on in me may not be my fault. Like just really, it may not be my fault.
Yeah.
It may not. I'm not looking to throw nobody under the bus, but it may not be my fault. But I am going to figure out how to make it my responsibility to fix it. Yeah. Because I learned this too. It was a pastor that told me this years ago. He said, I want you to think about your life like a pool of dark, murky, nasty water. That's all the trauma, issues, moodiness, all kinds of generational curses you have. And he said, you can't ladle the water out of there. The only way to clear that water up is to pour clean water in it. And if you pour enough clean water in it, you'll start to see it go from black to dark gray to light gray to maybe just a little, maybe it's a little murky, but you're starting to clear it up. So the negative is in there, but you got to get as much positive in there as possible to dilute that. But whatever you don't get done, you leave behind for your kids to deal with.
Oh.
So if you never try to clear that water up and it's dark and nasty and murky and rancid, and then all of a sudden you leave that behind for your kids, are like, wait a minute, I didn't want this. I didn't want this pool of water. This is nasty. So then now they're left with basically you're riding around in life with your brakes on. You know, it's like you're supposed to be going 60 miles an hour, but you got your foot on the gas and the brake at the same time.
Oh.
But you didn't, it wasn't your brake. It was your mama brake, your daddy brake. They got their foot on the brake and you trying to get up to 60 miles an hour. So it's difficult. And you're going to tear up an engine. You're going to tear up an axle. You're going to destroy your car ultimately until finally someone says, man, this is not my fault, but it's my responsibility.
That's really good. So Kira, when you decided that, I guess before you met Cedric and you were going through that process, like what was that journey like to get from, you were married before, now you're single, and it's like, okay, now I got to go through these, because let's be honest, being single is not always easy.
No, it's not.
I've been single for a long time, but do I get lonely at times? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there times that, and let's be real, that do I want to have sex?
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
But how do you go through that journey and still be satisfied in it, still have the desire to be married, but said, you know what, but I'm okay where I am now.
I'm okay where I'm at.
Yeah.
I think it took me probably 2 years into singlehood to be okay with where I was. And, I didn't want my marriage to end. And I think that's important for people to hear. And it's important for people to hear because someone may be listening that has had to end a marriage that they didn't want to end. Like, I wanted to be married. That was why I got married.
Right.
And because my ex-spouse was doing things that was contrary to our vows, I found myself single. And when you find yourself single versus you saying, you know what, I don't ever want to be married. I'm good. I don't need a man. All of these other things. It's kind of like I felt like I had been robbed. I remember somebody asked me, I had went to lunch shortly after I had got married, and she was very unassuming. And she said, so what do you feel like is the biggest thing you lost in your divorce? And I said, my husband. I was trying to be married.
Right.
And so I think that people have this notion that if you get divorced, it's because you want to be divorced. Sometimes people get divorced because that's what's left.
That's what's left.
And I decide I got to figure out what to do with what's left.
Yes.
And so I think it took me 2 years to really be okay with this is where I am. I've never known this place because I was very young when I got married. And so I didn't have a runway of being single. And now I'm being married for the first time. Like I went from mama to college to baby to husband.
Yes.
So there was never a period where as an adult with a whole mind and heart and spirit that I was single. So there was a lot of resentment for me. I didn't want to be single. I didn't want people calling me single. I didn't want to go to the singles event at the church. Don't put me in that. I would say I'm in transition.
Like, I'm not gonna do right.
I do not want to identify with this group because that's not what I saw myself as. It was terrible.
That's real.
Yeah, it was. And once I came to the realization that if I'm here, I must be here for a reason. So why does God have me single? Because if God wanted it different, he could have made it different.
Right.
And once I got to that part of myself, that's when I began to discover not only am I single, but I'm Ruth in my singleness.
Oh, that's good.
That I'm not just out here being everybody else.
Yeah.
That while I'm here, I'm Ruth. And when I started studying Ruth, I realized that I could identify with her, because although my ex-husband I wasn't single because of death, which was Ruth's story.
Right.
Ruth had been married before. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's right. I've been married before. My marriage died.
Right.
So by proxy, I'm without.
Yes.
So let me identify with what God did in her life. Because if you think biblically, just for a moment, in those days, women were not responsible for the finances of the home. The man was.
Right.
She was a wife, meaning she was covered. She was taken care of. She didn't have to work. When her husband died and when she found herself single, she had to go back to work. She had to figure that part of her life out.
Yeah.
And I could see so many parallels with me. I had to go back to work. I don't like clocking in and out. I'm allergic to it. The time clock is not my friend.
It's not your friend.
And so I was really struggling with having to do that. But again, if you are listening to this and you know that you are in a season of being single, whether by choice or whether by a decision somebody else has made for you, figure out what God wants for you for that season. I had to realize that once I figured that out, like, okay, I'm here on purpose. There's a reason for this. What am I supposed to get in me? Mm-hmm. And what is God trying to get out of me?
Right.
And I studied the book of Ruth, and I studied it. And the more I studied it, the more I realized that her story was less about Boaz. Mm-hmm. And it was more about her.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the book of Ruth.
Yeah. It's the book of Ruth.
And when I started looking at all of the things that she had to begin to develop in herself, a work ethic, the ability to listen. Mm. Can you obey someone that's trying to give you good information?
Yeah.
Are you willing to do something that you may not be comfortable doing? You know, Ruth now is getting ready to have a baby. Yeah. Are you willing to start over? Are you willing to take on other people's opinions?
Yeah.
You know, when Boaz took her in, he had to go into the whole city and say, hey, look, I'm about to take her and her mama. That's everybody's in your business.
Yes.
Are you willing and ready to stand in that position as Ruth? I went even deeper with it. And I believe, I can't find the biblical connections, but I believe that Ruth is the Proverb 31 woman. That the things that she had to do in her singleness and what she discovered in being able to make things with her hands and being able to take care of her home early in the morning and her servants and her husband being this man of great nobility and people in the gate love him and her children praise her. Those attributes that she had are the same attributes that Ruth had.
Yeah.
You know, and so how do you find yourself in a spirit of contentment is one, first saying, I'm here for a reason. Mm-hmm. I'm here for a reason. Now, how long I have to stay?
That part
depends on how quickly I can get to where God wants me to be.
That's good. That's
right.
Good.
So if I'm here, let me be doing what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
So that God has no reason to delay.
Yes. Yes. So I do have one question. So in singleness, and I know we're not talking about singleness, but I do want to, because I know I do want women to hear this as well, because I think sometimes all your focus is on a husband, where some of it needs to be, okay, let me deal with me.
Yes.
You know, do I desire to marry? Yes, but let me deal with me.
Yes.
You know, and because I go back to myself. So I was like you. Did I want to be divorced? No. Mm-hmm. This is a position I found myself in, you know, but I was bitter for a very long time, and I held on to that bitterness. And then I went into survival mode because I had these 3 kids that I had to figure out what I was going to do. So now that my kids are grown and it's like, I've been single forever. It's like, okay, like God, I do want a husband, but what I'm gonna do with him? Right. You know, but I do. So I will say this: in the past, I guess about 3 years, once my kids were grown, I really took the time to heal, because I don't think I actually really healed from that divorce. And that's just being transparent. Because I didn't have time to grieve it. I had to go straight into taking care of my household. So once they were grown and gone, God allowed me to begin that healing process
Yes.
and to, him and therapy.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
to do that. But I had to go do some introspection. I had to really say, okay, D, what is going on with you that now you want to be married, but do someone want to marry you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a real question.
Are you ready for that?
Yeah, am I ready for that?
Yeah.
But I do, but I will say, this is probably the happiest time of my life, really.
Yeah.
I enjoy my time. When I do meet him or God sends him, then I'll be ready.
Yeah. I can identify with that because right before I was presented to Cedric, I was really happy. Like I was good.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, you know what, this is kind of cool. Like I might be able to hang out here for a little while. I don't know about the sex part.
Let's be real.
How are we going to deal with that? But everything else in my life, I actually loved.
Right. For women who are trying to live godly.
Right. For women who are trying to live godly. I can't tell you how many repentance passes I had. I had a whole coupon book just tear this out because I can't. It's difficult. And you know what? Let me say this about sex. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yes, ma'am.
I think the other thing is this is so important because sometimes as single women, we may not be being intimate with another person, but we may be doing this self-satisfaction piece.
Tell the truth.
Okay.
Listen, ladies.
I don't know who all is listening to this, but if you are listening, when you start talking about getting prepared for your husband, there was a period where God was like, okay, you're going to have to stop all that because I'm preparing you for covenant, which means I'm preparing you for intercourse with your husband. And if you keep satisfying yourself, I know this is really real.
No, be real. This is real. Yes.
That's a part of preparation, ladies. Like cleansing ourselves sexually. I may not have a man that I'm being intimate with, but if I'm the only person that can bring me to sexual satisfaction, what am I going to have for him? How am I going to be able to enter into relationship and intimacy with him if everything I've been doing is all on what I like and how I like it, right?
Yes.
Those are things that women need to be thinking about as well. It's not just what's your credit score and how many degrees do you have and do you like people? It's also those other intimate parts of us that when we're single, we're taking care of. I'm going to take care of myself.
Right.
Right. And now I'm saying, okay, now I got a husband. But I got this part. And you're going to be like, no, ma'am, you don't.
And honestly, and let's be real, these are battery operated machines.
Yes. It was so good. He told me, he asked me. He did, babe. Can I share this?
Share it.
He asked me. He was like, "So, what do you intimately like? What do you like? Are you into these things?" And I was like, "No, I've never done that, babe. I know I'm telling a lot of our business, but I was like, I just didn't for whatever reason. I didn't." And he was like, "That's so good for us as men because I'm not a machine." Right?
Come on. I can't do it.
I can't do what a machine can do. And how difficult would that have been if now I've been prepared, I've cleansed myself, I'm ready to be a wife, I got the submission thing down, and now it's time to get busy and we can't. That would be terrible.
Terrible.
And let me add to that too.
I don't know how we got to
this
that.
Is so great. High performing men who really do desire to have a great future, we will also practice something called semen retention.
Oh yeah, babe, that's good too.
Okay, and semen retention is like for instance, some guys, just because they can put their hand on their stuff, they can get to the finish line quick. They got all kinds of different ways that they can do it, right? The bad news about that is that it's more likely to cause erectile dysfunction. And for many men, in order for them to have that release, they need to continue to increase their appetite for pornography. So you go from a little bit of porn, just a couple of pictures, to it being triple X, 5X, 10X,
wow,
all kinds of other things. Now you have to be so stimulated visually in order to get to a place of intimacy, right? And that right there is a very real problem that's going on right now. So many of the high performing men who are single do our best to practice something called semen retention. and what you're able to do. There's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics, which talks about something called sex transmutation, where you can actually take your sex drive as a man, and if you start to cut a large portion of that out, you can push it in more of a productive direction and create millions of dollars as a result of it.
Wow.
And you can use that energy, because it's very aggressive, productive energy. But if you put it into the wrong things, it'll cater to your demise. But if you put it in the right things, it can really excel you and propel you to another level. So for men, and keep in mind, when we talk about the fruit of the spirit, self-control is one of those things, right?
Yes.
So if a guy has no self-control, he's like, well, I need to do it all the time and every day and 17 times a day. And if I can't, I'm going to find another place to get it. Okay, brother, you ain't got no self-control.
No self-control.
You really don't. You do not have no self-control, because there's a human factor you got to factor into intimacy too, right? There really is. There's going to be times where maybe it don't go exactly the way that you really need it to go on both sides.
Yes.
She may be like, well, come on. He'd be like, well, I can't. I got this, that, and the other. Well, understand, there's going to be times you can't too, bro.
Right. Yeah,
there's going to be times you can't. And so on and so forth. So any guys who are, they're really not flexible in that way, even just a little bit, that's a I hate to say it, that's really a red flag. That's really a red flag.
So the red flag, baby, what you're saying is that when, as a single woman or as a woman who's preparing herself to be a wife, if she's dating or she's in courtship and she's seeing that he has this over hyper need for sex
and has no self-control,
he has no self-control, that's a red flag.
It is.
So what does she do? Like, what if she's like, but I really like him and I really feel like this could be something?
She needs to ask the question. No, she does. There's some very, very serious questions that need to be asked and flushed out. And a woman has to be very careful on how you actually facilitate this conversation. Because if you make a man feel demonized for his desires, you're going to turn him off immediately. You're going to turn him off. He'll be like, yeah, she ain't about that life. I don't really know. And then he's going to explore other options. It's better to have a very civilized conversation about it. I know I may not have enough time to walk you through the actual language of what maybe that needs to look like, but you need to do it in the highest level of your femininity. You need to make sure he feels nurtured, and that you're really operating from a position of curiosity and understanding, and not looking at him like, well, why you always all the time and I don't even understand and you just ain't got no self-control. He's done.
Right.
He's done.
Yeah.
He is done, because he knows that the second that something comes up that you disagree with, you're going to demonize him for it. And he's going to be like, this is not a safe place for me. This is not a safe place for me. I want you to understand that men need to be able to trust you with some things. We need to be able to trust you with our heart. We need to be able to trust you with our money. We need to be able to trust you with our reputation. And we need to be able to trust you with our ears. So good. What you say to us does not resonate with our ears. Like, you have the ability to take something heavy and you can lay it on our ears softly. That gives you the level of respect that you don't even understand. Because in our mind, we're like, she really could have blasted me for that. But she chose to be soft. She chose to say, nope, I respect his ears. Let me give it to him this way. And that way it'll speak to the king in him. And it's not going to ignite. It's not going to ignite this warrior in him to want to fight back. Right. Because they're like, oh, okay, you want to fight. So let's fight. Right. And so those are some of the things that us men really need to be able to trust you with. So when we take you to a gala, we take you out on a date, and we let you get dolled up and whatnot. Oh, we watching. It's an interview. Trust. It's an interview. Like, okay, how she moving, how she flowing. Oh, she on her phone. Oh, she only interested in posting selfies of herself at an event that we at together. Okay,
that's a whole.
All right,
thing.
yeah.
Yes.
You go out to dinner and you spending more time on your phone looking at posts and those type of things than with me. It's like, okay, all right, cool. And we may not ever say anything about it. We're going to take it all in, and all of a sudden you're just not getting the same level of connection with them anymore. Well, he didn't text me in a couple of days. Yeah, he's pretty much done. He's pretty much done. And if you ask to still stick around, at best you'll end up on a roster.
Not the roster.
Ooh, not the
at
roster.
Best. Not the roster.
At best you
were
will.
Talking about the ears, how you all want to be able to trust us with your ears. And that was something that was an attribute of the Proverbs 31 woman. the word of God says that the law of kindness is on her tongue, right?
Yeah.
That wisdom is in her mouth and the law of kindness is on her tongue. And when I met Cedric, and we were talking for the very first time, he told me that the woman in his life, the wife in his life, would need to take up real estate in 3 areas of his life. So I'm, like real estate. I mean, I'm leasing my house right now, but I went immediately to that. Like real estate. Can I get a loan, a mortgage right now? I gotta buy some stuff. And he told me, he said she has to take a real estate in my church because I'm very involved in my church. I sit on the board and I'm my pastor's armor bearer. I had to take a real estate with his family because family was very important to him. And he said I had to take up real estate in his business. And so when he told me that, while I'm over here being prepared, right, God was also giving him opportunities for me to have something to take up real estate with. So I'm not just looking for a husband.
Right.
I'm still in a position to work and serve and be in purpose.
That's good.
And I think that that's the other part.
That yes.
We get married and we like, oh, I'm good. I got my husband, girl. I can sit back and I can just relax and everything's on him. He the head of the house. He got it. Make sure he had something to eat and he got clean underwear. Right?
This is where men feel hoodwinked.
This is where he's
bamboozled,
right?
Run amok, led astray. This is where we be like,
yes.
False advertising. I want my money back.
It's too late. But I think that's important.
Yeah.
When you start talking about single to newlywed.
Yeah.
That I didn't just get married and we had all of the great, the dress and the cake and all of these things. We got married and then I actually went to work. That's how that happened. I had things to do. Yeah. And I think that that's the other thing as single women that we have to be conditioning ourselves for. One thing that the Lord told me, he told me 2 things. Well, he told me a lot of things, but one thing he told me that as it pertains to being single and being ready to get married, he said, first of all, there is no man on this earth that is ever going to love you more than me.
Ooh, not yes. That's good.
So good.
He said, I didn't even put it in the heart of man to be able to love you more than I love you, Kira, because no one can take my place. I made that a commandment. You shall have no other God before me. He said, I want you to love me with your whole heart, your whole mind, your whole soul. So it's not possible. It is impossible for Cedric to love me more than God. And that took, before he knew it, that took so much pressure off of him as it pertained to me. Because I knew already he probably going to get it wrong. Right. He's probably going to mess up. He's probably going to be hurting me, even if he doesn't mean to hurt me.
Now
because he cannot love me more than God. It's impossible. God doesn't even create a man that can love me more than him. When he gave me that revelation, I was like, wow. Now I can enter my marriage with grace, with forgiveness, with the ability to forgive quickly, to forget about things that he might do. That's good. And then I was like, okay, then the same must be true.
That's right.
I can't love him more than God loves him. So he's going to have patience and I'm going to get it wrong. So I think that's part of it, because when you're single, you just have these dream markers.
You do.
And he's going to do all of these things. And he's going to love me. And he's going to dine me and wine me and buy me things. And all of this, all of my single issues are going to be over because my husband has arrived. Now I can really live my life. That's what we think.
That is what we think.
And the other thing that God told me, not only was there not somebody who could love me more than him, was he told me that whatever he was putting in me was for him. That I am supposed to be helping him. Helping means working.
Okay, I want to talk about that too for a minute. So when you get into covenant, like you all, but it doesn't necessarily take away her identity. Like, of course, you are supporting him, because I have heard like people get married and now the wife loses who she is. But to me, I think it works best when you guys work together. But
Agreed.
what does that even look like?
Yeah.
Like
it
how,
looks like this.
like how do you support him and still have EBD?
Yeah.
How do you support him and still do all the things that you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I can say this, I would say that first of all, it looks like a covering, not a drowning.
Yeah.
You're not holding her under the water, or drowning her. I'm covering her like a blanket, which keeps you warm and keeps you protected from certain things that happen to you. And that's why the maturation process is so important. You may find someone that is a husband, that is a wife, but not necessarily yours, because it does need to fit.
Come on.
It needs to fit. And so I knew she understood her purpose already. So a lot of our conversation revolved around purpose. And then inside her purpose, she's talking about, well, dating's hard for me because I'm a wife. Okay, well, let me see. Now I'm watching, I'm like, man, she's right.
Yeah.
And she's progressive, and she's a businesswoman, and very feminine with what she does as a woman, very strong in her femininity. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is great. So then as we continue to add to that, well, here's what my purpose is. Right? Here's what my calling is. Are those things that are going to really affect you in a bad way? Because I got to answer God's calling on my life first. Mm-hmm. I do. It's God, family, business, right? But when we get into covenant, it's us two, and God as well. Yeah. But he calls for us to do some things. Then God revealed to me what our actual purpose is as a couple. She loves it when I say it all the time, right? And so,
you know why I love it? Why? I love it because when I asked you, you had an answer.
Yeah, that's true. She did just randomly ask me. We're on the phone. She's like, you know what? Has God said anything to you about what our purpose is as a couple? I said, as a matter of fact, he has. In my prayer time, he shared it with me.
And that is something that single women need to be asking. We asking all the wrong questions. We want to know, do you like, what's your favorite color? How's your mom and them? No, you need to really find out. These are questions that you need to be asking. If you are a woman and you know what your purpose is, if God sent your husband to you, he should have an answer for that.
Yes.
He should have an answer for that. So I love to hear you say it, baby, because when I asked you the first time, you had an answer.
What is the question?
The question was, I asked him that day, I said, has God spoke to you about what our purpose is together? Because I knew what his purpose was as a single. Mm-hmm. I knew what my purpose was as a single. Uh-huh. But I'm asking him, what is God saying to him about us?
Your purpose
together. And he responded so quickly.
And so the answer is I said, God revealed to me is that we sit at an intersection, right? Mm-hmm. And so at this intersection of purpose, it is marketplace ministry, which we do a lot of business. And obviously we glorify God with what we do. We're going to hand him back everything. We do it with prayer, ordered steps and things of that nature. And it's impactful, not just for us, but for what we do with marketplace ministry for generations to come, right? And the other part is that we're also advocates for singles who desire to be couples. So what we're doing right now is purposeful.
Yes,
it's all purposeful because we are advocating for singles who desire to be couples. We're closer to 50 than we are 40. Okay. Yes. We collectively have been married for 44 years, but not to each other.
Not to each other.
Right. And so much of our identity is wrapped up in what God put down on the side of us to be a husband and a wife. We're not married to the right people, unfortunately. Right. Or maybe we were in those seasons. In those seasons. Yeah. And so with that, us being able to talk about that, and now everything that happens in our life, we're like, baby, does that fit in our purpose? No, it doesn't. And we can just let it go. We let it go so easy. Oh, wow. We do. I'm like, babe, that's not purposeful. She's like, okay, cool. Well, on to the next thing. We just keep it moving, because when you've gone through so many years of loss, what we believe to be loss, when you've gone through so many years of that, and then all of a sudden you get to where we are now, we don't want to lose anything else.
Yes.
We just want to gain and retain.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what we want to do. Gain, retain, and ideally grow it, whatever it may be. But we're not particularly looking to go backwards in any area whatsoever.
And one thing so what I hear too is that you all identified, like you said, the purpose of this marriage. Mm-hmm. So now it makes it a lot easier because so much easier. It's like, okay, here, this is who we are. Mm-hmm. Right. If it's not here, then it has to go.
This ain't it. This ain't it.
Yeah. It keeps us rooted in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Okay, I do want to touch back on something that, if you guys don't mind me
talking about absolutely.
It. Okay. So when Kira told me, when you guys were first dating, or maybe you were just getting to know each other, but and I don't know the whole story, so I'm probably getting it wrong, but you said, I want to pray about this first. Remember you said
He did.
So to me, when you said that, I was like, that is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Because I think you said something like you weren't ghosting her or something, but you wanted to pray. Can you talk about that?
I took it a step further. I actually fasted about it. And so with that, I helped her understand what was going on. Mm-hmm. We're probably not going to be able to have much contact with each other here for, what was it, 7 days?
7 days.
7 days.
7 days of my life.
I think I was actually a couple days into it. And then I helped her understand. I said, I can't make any decisions right now. Mm-hmm. I really need to get as much clarity as possible because based off what God says, I'm going to go full steam ahead with whatever he has for me. So I took that time, and she says it was a hard 5 to 7 days, right? And it was. I mean, we had no communication. I wasn't calling, texting, emailing, liking nothing on Facebook. Wasn't doing any of that. And really, really took that time because I needed to be so free and so clear in order to really, truly move forward. When you talk about really, truly wanting to have that balance in my life, and I'm going to talk about that here in a second, I really, truly, truly desired it. And I told her, I said, well, I don't know how you feel about the fact that I'm about, I really can't have any communication with you, but this is just what I have to do. And she was very, very respectful. I was like, well, if this blows her out of the water, then it just helped me. You know what I mean?
Right.
But she was like, no, absolutely. Go ahead and do that. But I didn't realize how powerful she really thought it was until after.
Let me tell you something. If a man said to me, I need to take this time and really fast about this, I'm like, Lord, if you don't have him call me back in a good 48 hours so we can go ahead and go move forward with this.
But listen, that's also a fruit of the spirit. That is self-control.
That is self-control.
You know how hard it was to not reach out to her? It wasn't that I didn't want to, but to not reach out to her because my future depended on it. Mm-hmm. Our future depended on it, right?
That's good.
So I wasn't looking to go through any relationship that was going to be idle in any way. And I shared with her afterwards that I said, I'm not going to play with you. I said, we're going to be together. I am going to ask you into courtship and we're going to, and I said, she's like, what is courtship?
I'm used to it.
She said, where they do that at? No,
where they do courtship?
This is the part that was priceless for me. So I said, so she's like, so what are we supposed to do? And I said, well, she said, so do we go together now? Or do we make a post on social media? Like are we exclusive? What is courtship exactly? Right. And I said, well, I'm going to come to Kansas City because for a lot of people, they don't know she lived in Kansas City. I lived in St. Louis. We did a long distance relationship for over a year and a half.
Yes.
Right. And so I said, I'm going to come to Kansas City and I'm going to ask you into courtship. And she's like, well, and then every day she's like, well, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm going to be there in a few days. Just calm down. I think one time
I said, just ask me over the phone. The answer going to be yes. Just ask.
That is what you said.
I think I said that. Just ask me over the phone. The answer's going to be yes.
I said no.
But you know what? It was so powerful because he said, no, I want to honor you. And I want to look you in the eye when I ask this because it's a very serious question. And so there were these breadcrumbs along the way. When we talk about women and not getting tricked and not wasting time.
Yes.
There were these breadcrumbs. There were these hints of seriousness. It wasn't just he had great phone conversation. the action behind what he was doing matched what he said. Mm-hmm. Remember when you told me this, babe? You said, I'm going to do 3 times as much as I say.
Wow.
So I'm like, oh, cool. I got a measure now. Right?
You have a measure.
I got a measure. You said you doing 3 times as much as you say. So now I can see if what you say lines up with what you do. And those are things as single women that we need to be paying attention to. We paying attention to the wrong stuff. We trying to see what kind of shoes he wearing, where he stay, where he work,
what car he drive,
what kind of car is he driving. We're missing these foundational things that are really telling us who they are.
Yes, who they are.
Who they are. You know? Yeah. And I mean, it worked out that because I wasn't focused on those things and he didn't lead with those things, that when he came to pick me up, he had a drop top Corvette with the, you know what I'm saying? That he was 6'5", 200 and some pounds, that he was good looking, that he had his own business, that he had been on national television. Come on. That he does serve in his church in a very powerful way. God. That he does love the Lord, absent of me. So I didn't have to wish for all of those things. I was looking for the foundational things that he said that he was. And that showed up in courtship.
Oh, that's good.
That showed up in courtship.
Good. Okay, so we're going to...
I know we got to
pull it together.
This is my player time. You got to let me say this part. Because this is one of my best moments ever. So what happened, I drove to Kansas City. I get there. I walk into her house.
Yes.
And I wasn't even there like 10 minutes. Again, I was sitting at her kitchen table, and she's like, "Can I get you something to drink or what?" And I said, "Yeah, you can get me something to drink." And I said, "As soon as you get done getting me something to drink, I need you to come over here because I need you to get used to saying yes to me."
Yeah.
And she told me, I said that. I was like, "Oh, that was good." Oh, that was good. So I sat her down on my knee. I did, and she brought me my water, and she hugged me, and I said, Cheree, I said, will you enter into courtship with me? Will you be my girlfriend? And she was like, yes. I said, you got 2 more to go. Two more yeses to go. 2 more to go. So the second one was yes to an engagement. And the other yes was yes to I will marry you.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
I will marry you.
That is awesome.
That was it. Because so covenant should terminate to
courtship.
I'm sorry. What did I say? Courtship. Yeah. Apologize.
That's okay.
Yeah. Courtship should terminate to an engagement. Right. That's the road it's headed towards.
Yes.
Which means your relationship can't be filled with a bunch of activities. Oh, we're dating and you're posting it on social media and all that. Most of who we are, the world didn't even see. It's all the things that we did in the background. Because guess what? You got to fortify your relationship.
Yeah.
You got to have a strong foundation. Right, that's going to resist the winds and the waves and the hail and the tornadoes and all those type of things, which most people don't. That's why the second one bad comment on a post can ruin a whole relationship because you put it out there and it was never protected. It never had any foundation. So by the time I revealed to the world that we were together, it looked like this on social media. They were like, oh, Cedric is in a relationship. Cedric and Kira. People were like, oh my God, that's so great. Cedric and Kira are engaged. What? Cedric and Kira just got married. It's like, wait a minute. 45 days?
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
It was 45 days. It was like, boom, boom. People was like, they were texting me like, what?
Congratulations
again.
That is so funny because I but right, you're right. Social media is like, because even my kids were like, wait, hold on, what? Wait.
That was it. It's already done. So now if anybody, well, I didn't even know it was sick. It's too late. Too late. You know, I ain't even know. I thought she was married. It's too late. It's too late, bro. It's too late. It's already done.
Yeah. We're past all of that.
I put that theft deterrent system on her hand. We're good.
Sure did. She sure did.
Okay, see, you clouded. Look, she did good too.
Yeah. They did very well.
Yes. So, you know, Dee, I don't want to miss the opportunity to really, really encourage my sisters. Okay.
Yeah.
I really don't. And one of the things I want to share is a man is going to be the best version of himself with his feminine counterpart. It is just an absolute fact. Some of the top executives that you see, top business leaders that's out there, they can get married 100 different times, but they're going to die married. 9 times out of 10.
You're right.
They are. You be like, he married again? Yep, he is, because he knows he's in best balance when he has his feminine counterbalance to that. Now, obviously, I don't want people having a marriage turnstile at their front door, right? I've been married 8 times, still going. No, I don't. I'm not promoting that at all. Yeah. But I want ladies to know. I'm going to talk to you. I want y'all to know that there is a man that is really groomed and ready for you. He's a man that is designed for you, that would love to marry you, that would love to be with you, that is literally waking up every single day out of balance. Jesus. He's got all these great things going for him, but he's still missing that feminine counterbalance. That feminine counterbalance. But guess what? For many of those men, they won't be able to realize their feminine counterbalance unless you heal, unless you get whole, unless you actually be so that you can have this particular type of person. And you got to be open to something that is outside of the norm for you. Because if the norm worked for you, you'd be married to it. Ooh, if he got to be tall and dark and a beard and muscles and all that, and that keep getting you in trouble, you may want to be open to something different. Just be open to something, be extremely open-minded, because guess what? He might want something different than you, but he may be open-minded to you. Yeah. So again, there are men waking up that are out of balance every day, that you may be the very real answer to them being balanced. But understand, he got to be able to trust you with these 4 things. Now, remember what they are. They are his money, his reputation, okay? It's his ears and his heart. You got to be able to show him you can trust it. And when you can really massage those things the right way, it takes real true femininity and softness to do that. If you're hard, you're like, Negro, what you crying for? That you just missed it with his ears. You just missed it. Anytime you villainize a man for anything, he automatically is going to build distrust in one, if not all 4 of those areas.
That's good. That's good. Kira, Cedric, thank you so much for being on Be the Voice. Oh, yeah. Ladies, even men, the men.
Oh, yeah.
Tune in. I mean, replay this if you need to, because this was some great nuggets, even for me, who desires to be married. You guys, this was awesome. This was great. Honestly, I'm like, we need to have a panel where we have people asking questions, really, because
we can fill your whole panel up. We got some folks.
That would be phenomenal, because I know right now, ladies are going to be like, I got questions. I know they do. I know they do. They do. Yeah. So I think this was phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Yes,
our pleasure.
For being here on Be the Voice. So thank you all for always tuning in to Be the Voice podcast. We'll be back. We will be back next week, and we talk about someone who's been married for over 20 years. Wow. Yeah, so super excited about that. I know they're going to have some great nuggets, because unfortunately we don't see that a lot, in our community. But definitely have some great friends who have been married for about 22 years now, and just excited to have them on the program. So be sure to tune in next week. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and share this with everyone, because anyone, that man or woman that wants to be married, this is some great nuggets for them. So you guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you back next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.